Have you ever wondered what forgotten sci-fi dreams are still floating through YouTube's endless vaults? The films once ignored, dismissed, or buried behind fading reels. Some of them hide strange ideas, bold experiments, and quiet surprises. And as you move down this list, you might notice a pattern no one talks about. Let's dive in. The Cosmic Man, 1959. The arrival is quiet. No thunder, no bright show in the sky. Just a strange metal sphere landing in a desert, and a visitor who steps out wrapped in shadow. That is the calm yet eerie setup of The Cosmic Man, a film that looked simple on the outside but carried a deeper chill underneath. At release, many viewers treated it as a small Cold War tale with a polite alien and a few government officials arguing in dimly lit rooms. What they missed was the film's real intention. It was made during a time when fear sat in every newspaper, and the idea that someone from beyond might arrive with calm words instead of danger felt almost rebellious. Behind the scenes, the budget was small, which meant the filmmakers had to stretch every set, every fogged frame, every quiet pause. They used real mountain locations to give the story a sense of isolation. The star, John Carradine, leaned into the mystery, performing with stillness instead of big gestures. That stillness made the alien presence feel unsettling, as if he carried knowledge the human characters were not ready to hear. Decades later, the movie slipped into the public domain and resurfaced on YouTube. Now, viewers appreciate what earlier crowds missed. The Cosmic Man isn't loud. It whispers. And sometimes, whispers linger longer. Battle Beyond the Sun, 1962. Before flashy space sagas filled every screen, there was this odd and hypnotic hybrid. Battle Beyond the Sun began life as a Soviet space adventure called Nebo Zovyot. When it crossed into American hands, producer Roger Corman handed the editing scissors to a young newcomer named Francis Ford Coppola. The result is a film that feels like two different dreams stitched together. On one side, you have earnest Soviet engineering pride. On the other, you have bizarre space creatures added in the American version to satisfy audiences who wanted something stranger. Those added creatures were famously built from leftover props and creative improvisation. They move awkwardly, almost puppet-like. Yet that awkwardness has become part of the film's charm. What once made critics shake their heads now makes fans smile. The space races, the swirling nebula backdrops, the dramatic monologues about humanity reaching outward all feel like echoes from a different era. During production, clashes between cultures shaped every frame. Soviet filmmakers wanted realism. American editors wanted fantasy. The final cut is a mosaic of tones that should not work, yet somehow does. Watching it feels like stepping into a time capsule where cinema itself was, learning how to imagine the cosmos. On YouTube, both the Soviet cut and the American cut flow through the algorithm, inviting viewers to compare the two versions. Battle Beyond the Sun is not polished, but it is unforgettable. It stands as proof that even patched-together art can burn bright. The Yesterday Machine, 1963. Some movies start with a roar. This one begins with a quiet mystery and a sense that something is wrong. The Yesterday Machine is a tiny production with giant ambition. A pair of students vanishes. A strange figure appears in the woods. A trail leads investigators toward a hidden laboratory where time itself has been twisted into a loop. No flashy special effects, no giant sets. Yet the atmosphere carries a gentle tension that keeps pulling you forward. The story centers on a rogue scientist who believes he can bend history by dragging pieces of the past into the present. The filmmakers had almost no money, so they shot in abandoned buildings, public fields, and empty hallways. That lack of a controlled studio surprisingly helps the film. The rough edges make the world feel unstable, as if time could slip at any moment. Actors delivered the dialogue with a seriousness that gives the story emotional weight, even when the plot asks them to face the impossible. When the final reveal arrives, it hits harder than expected, because it leans into human choices rather than spectacle. Over the decades, critics have revisited the movie and discovered a sincerity that was once overlooked. Today, YouTube hosts crisp transfers that let modern viewers enjoy its eerie tone. The Yesterday Machine reminds us that sci-fi does not need big budgets to spark imagination. Sometimes all it takes is a strange idea and the courage to follow it. Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet, 1965. If you have ever wondered what happens when clever editors, recycled footage, and a handful of new scenes collide, this movie is the answer. Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet began as a Soviet space adventure called Planeta Bur. When it reached American studios, Roger Corman again stepped in and reshaped it for local audiences. He added Basil Rathbone as a calm, commanding scientist and stitched his scenes into the original feature. The result is a film where two tones coexist in a surprisingly smooth blend. The story follows astronauts landing on a violent and mysterious Venus. Volcanoes erupt, strange mists roll in, creatures lurk beneath the fog. And all the while, the explorers argue, joke, and improvise their way through danger. The Soviet footage provides sweeping landscapes and striking costumes. The American inserts offer new dialogue and a sense of mission control observation. The behind-the-scenes conditions were famously tough. The Soviet crew shot on rugged outdoor sets, battling fierce weather and heavy suits that limited their movement. Their practical effects created a world that feels both dreamlike and raw. When the American team transformed it, they softened certain scenes while pushing others toward mystery. Today, the film sits freely on YouTube, where viewers piece together the history in real time. Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet is a patchwork treasure. Imperfect, yes, but overflowing with personality. The Bubble, 1966. Imagine walking into a town where everyone behaves just a little too calmly. Every smile feels rehearsed. Every street looks correct, but not quite right. That is the eerie world of The Bubble, a movie that feels like stepping into a living twilight dream. The story begins with a couple forced to land in a remote town after aircraft trouble. At first, everything seems normal. Then they notice tiny details that do not add up. People repeat phrases. Roads lead nowhere. And above the town hangs a shimmering barrier no one can explain. The Bubble was one of the earliest films shot in a special three-dimensional system. The director wanted to create a sense of dimensional drift, where objects slide toward the viewer without warning. It gave the movie a strange visual rhythm that confused early audiences, but fascinated later ones. Some theaters even projected it incorrectly, which made the effects stranger and turned screenings into local legends. The plot unfolds slowly, letting the tension build through quiet moments rather than big confrontations. Extras were instructed to move with a slight stiffness to make the town feel staged. That small choice creates one of the most memorable atmospheres in 60s sci-fi. Decades later, The Bubble resurfaced online where viewers finally appreciate its unusual tone. It is not just a film, it is an experience that leaves you questioning what is real. Cyborg 2087, 1966. Before time travel stories filled every streaming service, there was this quiet little film that arrived with a bold idea and barely any budget. Cyborg 208. Seven introduced viewers to a distant future where thoughts are monitored and choices are limited. A lone synthetic human escapes that system and travels into the past, seeking the moment when freedom slipped away. The premise alone would later echo through many bigger films. Yet this early version carries a charm that blockbuster remakes could never match. The production shot in simple desert areas and suburban streets, dressing them with minimal props to hint at a future society. Because resources were limited, actors relied heavily on expression and physical stillness to suggest artificial design. That stillness gives the cyborg character a quiet intensity that stands out even today. Much of the film's tension comes from conversations rather than action. The cyborg tries to convince people of the past that the future will lose something precious if they do not change course. Some scenes feel more like philosophical debates than sci-fi, but that is exactly what sets the movie apart. Behind the scenes, the crew scrambled to build futuristic equipment from household items, achieving a look that is both retro and oddly modern. YouTube now hosts restored copies that highlight its creative risks. Cyborg 2087 reminds us that ambition can thrive even when resources cannot. Teenagers from Outer Space, 1959. This is the little movie that refused to disappear. Made with a tiny budget and a cast of mostly unknown actors, Teenagers from Outer Space tells the story of a young visitor who rebels against his strict group and tries to protect Earth. While early viewers laughed at its simple props and bold dialogue, modern fans admire its heart and sincerity. The production is legendary for its resourcefulness. The director handled multiple jobs including writing, acting, and editing. The spaceship interiors were built from everyday items transformed with silver paint. Outdoor scenes were shot in bright Los Angeles neighborhoods, giving the film an almost documentary feel. The narrative centers on the young visitor discovering compassion, while the rest of his group follows strict orders. His internal conflict creates unexpected emotional moments, especially when he realizes Earth's people live with a warmth he has never known. Critics of the time dismissed the movie as too small and unpolished. Yet decades later, the very things they criticized have become its charm. There is a purity in its ambition and a kindness in its message that resonates with new viewers. YouTube revived Teenagers from Outer Space, giving it a second life. Today, it stands as proof that a film does not need resources to have a soul. Let me know which one you're watching next. Share this list with another explorer and subscribe for more hidden classics waiting just beyond the usual recommendations. The past is still speaking. All we have to do is listen.